Hey there, it's Will from the Marketing from the Trenches podcast. And in today's episode, we're going to be going through and diving deep into e-commerce. So what it takes to build, grow, and scale your e-commerce business or your retail business. And for our guest today, I've got someone very, very special and at the very top of the e-commerce game. So I'm really excited and pumped to be bringing through my really good friend, Dim Niko. Now, I've been following Dim's journey for a long while, and we've been helping each other with both of our agencies. And I've just watched Dim do some amazing, amazing things in the e-commerce space over the past few years that we've been in contact. So I've seen him take stores from $60,000 a month in revenue and grow it to $1 million in revenue in less than 6 months. And we even go through and talk about how that kind of happened. And that's just one example of the stuff that he's done. So I'm really excited to be sharing his knowledge with you and getting him on board and talking about what he does, where he sees e-commerce and e-commerce marketing going, and also what you can do to grow your store. So if you're in e-commerce, I think you're going to get a whole bunch from this episode. Enjoy, and I'll catch you on the other side. So, hey, everyone listening, we've got another freaking awesome episode of the Marketing from the Trenches podcast. I'm super, super stoked today to be bringing you my friend, my brother, absolute e-commerce gun, a beast at e-commerce, Dim Niko. I said that right, yeah?
Yeah, that's it. Nikolakakis. Close. Everyone, it's closer than everyone else. So yeah, awesome, man. It's great to be here, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries, man. It's actually kind of embarrassing because we're actually really good mates. We stayed together in the US when we went across, and so I was like, I better not butcher your last name, man, because it looked really bad.
Yeah. That's all good. That's all good.
Cool, awesome. So so for everyone who doesn't know, Dimmy, it's really funny because we've kind of come up together in the agency world. And, we kind of been talking to each other for a long time about the stuff that we're doing for ourselves, for our clients. And every time I talk to Dimmy about e-commerce or Facebook ads and what him and his team are doing, it literally blows my mind. Like, I learned so much about e-com stuff when I talk to him. So, mate, I'm going to get you to explain a little bit about, what you guys do, the services, and also who you do it for.
Yeah, sweet, man. You flatter me. Thanks for that. Sweet. So basically, I started out in e-commerce probably when I was like late teens, just kind of finishing high school. I was looking for a business opportunity. I knew that I didn't want to do what everyone else was doing. I went to a private school at the time, and all the kids, their parents were doctors and lawyers, so everyone was destined to be a doctor and a lawyer. And people were kind of being forced through all these pigeonholes, and you kind of had to do either this, that, or the other, whether you liked it or not. And I was like, yeah, fuck that. Like that's not for me. I hope we can swear on here. Is that cool?
That's cool. Go for it, man.
So I was like, fuck that. It's definitely not for me. Kind of picking a career just because you have to pick a career, then you have to, find something that you like for the sake of finding something that you like, instead of actually, come up with passion and spending, the 40 hours or 60 hours or however you work a week now, which is in reality a lot more than that running our own business. I thought that that should be spent doing something you enjoy and you're super passionate about, because it's the bulk of your life, and you don't want to spend your entire life up until you're like 80 years old or 65 or whenever you retire, just doing bullshit that you don't want to do. So I was looking for an opportunity, and actually my little brother came up to me with an Alex Becker video. So Alex Becker is a YouTuber. He's got like a SaaS company, and he, sells, it's kind of like MailChimp for e-commerce, like an email marketing software for e-commerce. So he promotes a lot of dropshipping stuff. And, this was back in the day when dropshipping wasn't really a thing. And I was watching a video that my brother showed me, and it was explaining this concept of dropshipping that just blew my mind. You can have a business where you don't need to pay anything to start up front. You don't need inventory. There's essentially zero overheads and risk. So I dived straight into that. We started cranking. We were running ads that were, spending $5 a day. They were just traffic ads, 0 pixel, nothing. It was like the ghettoest shit ever. And somehow that was converting and making a fair bit of pocket money for us when we were in high school. Unfortunately, I wasn't savvy enough to understand, the concept of scale and actually, pushing it to the heights that it could have been pushed, particularly back then, because e-commerce was a completely different game back then compared to what it is now, which we'll talk about in a sec. But yeah, so I did that for a little bit, and then, ended up falling into the trap of going to uni under my parents' direction. Started studying law, just like all the other kids at my school, and I just did not fit in there at all. So I ended up, clicking on a random ad and taking a course about how to start your agency, because I obviously had some experience in e-commerce before that. And that's probably about three or so years ago. I mean, now I'm running an agency that specializes just in Facebook traffic for private label e-commerce brands. So essentially brands or people that sell physical products online that have their own brand, as opposed to drop shippers, just because that's a lot more sustainable business model. So we prefer working with those guys. And we're dealing with companies doing, typically between 6 and 7 figures a month. So 7 and 8 figures a year. And I mean, the team is we've got, like we were discussing before, we've got 6 full-timers now, including myself. And we're on track to do, 100K a month in the next, month or two. So it's been a pretty crazy ride. And I mean, I'm absolutely blessed. So that's pretty much a rundown of what we do, man. And yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, it's been a massive rise. I mean, I remember even, probably about 8 or 9 months ago, I think we were kind of both complaining to each other about the agency business, and from then you've just kind of taken off. And it's kind of funny too. I want you to touch on that a little bit, because you're like traveling the world now and your business is just like growing month for month. Like, so I think you're in South Africa now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's it. So I left Melbourne in December last year. Actually, I didn't travel much at all. Before that, I went to traffic and conversion the year before, and that was great. But I really was in a little bubble in Melbourne, and I preferred to stay and work out of the office. We had an office and a couple of guys in-house back then. And I mean, so I went to Bangkok in December to speak at Affiliate World, and then I kind of met this girl and ended up falling in love, and that happened. So I ended up, moving overseas, and I've been, on the road traveling essentially from conference to conference or marketing event to marketing event. So in the last couple of months, I've been to, the States. I went to Bangkok. I've been in South Africa. I went to Israel. Went back to Melbourne a little bit to speak at another event. And all of this is, for conferences and stuff like that. So it's been a pretty cool ride. And I mean, the business has been run the entire time. So I guess that's probably the thing that most people want to hear about. And the question I get a lot is remote better than in-house? And is it possible to do all the travel and to be able to go to all these conferences and stuff like that while still running a business? And I mean, since nutting out our systems, which is essentially what it all comes down to, having really solid systems in place, since getting that up and running and really nutting that out, everything has completely changed from agency business perspective, because, now as we grow and onboard, new media buyers to handle new clients, we've got an exact process to train up those media buyers and get them on board. I barely speak to them now. We've got our lead media buyer that does all the training for the new media buyers that come on board. And then, I mean, even down to the point where, when new clients come on board, there's an exact process that we go through. And most of it is designed to get my hands off as much as possible, because a trap that a lot of agency owners fall into, particularly when they're starting out, these guys that they're a one-man show, they call themselves an agency, which is fine. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's all good. But the trap that they fall into is every sort of business or your operational activity has to funnel through them before going to someone on their team, if they have someone on their team, or if they've got, client communications all have to go through them and then to the person on their team. And when it's all centralized in that manner, right? So if you imagine a kind of map or network, right, where you've got you in the middle and all these dots being all these different business activities, they're all joint to you in the middle. So if you have a client up here, right, and you've got your media buyer down here on this little mind map, if you want anything to happen between your client and your media buyer, the workflow has to go through you and get to that person. So it's really, really crucial to have the systems and processes in place to actually decentralize that model so that you're not in the middle anymore. And that media buyer that client can communicate directly with that media buyer, and the media buyer can communicate with a project manager or with a creative person or whatever it might be, so that you're taken off and taken out of the picture. And I mean, that doesn't necessarily, a big misconception is that, that a big cost of that will be the quality of your services and stuff. But if you've got good people on board and good training processes, these people can be absolutely phenomenal at delivering crazy results for clients without you being, with you being minimally involved. So
yeah, that's freaking amazing. I think what we're going to have to do, man, is we're probably going to have to jump on another episode and either talk agency growth or talk systems, because yeah, that's one of the things that I don't know about you, but I mean, we've talked about this a few times in the past, but one of the things I really struggled with, and just getting the right people on board. And yeah, I've got a similar story in that once we had someone who was really good at systems and got it set out, we've just been growing month on month. So it's a super important thing. And I think even though this is a marketing podcast, if you don't have the right systems in your business, there's no point in marketing, because you've just got no capacity. So dude, I think we're going to have to do another separate episode just on that. Um,
Yeah, let's do it, man. We'll stick to some eComm stuff for now then. Yeah.
yeah, awesome, man. Yeah, I think it'd be good because, look, to be quite honest with, and open about this, we don't do a lot in ecom, but I know that you guys are you only do ecom, so you guys absolutely smash it. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think for someone who's listening and who want to get into, or they have an ecom business, I think it'd be good to kind of dive into, to kind of what's working now. So, dude, let's get straight into it because I've been following, some of the case studies and stuff you've been pumping out and some of the results you've been getting for your clients. And dude, you guys are smashing it, like getting such good results. So maybe what we can do is because this is like the idea of the podcast, right, is to go from the trenches. So stuff that's actually working right now. So maybe if you can share like some client stories, you don't have to identify who they are, but what's happening to really kill it for them.
Yeah, cool. So I think when it comes to eComm strategy and actually making your e-commerce campaigns profitable and successful and being able to scale them, it's very twofold, right? There are two major sides to any e-commerce campaign. Now, firstly, there's like the really granular, deep media buying tactics, right? Where, all the stuff that happens within the ads manager in terms of, whether or not you're going to start doing your manual bidding or you're going to run CBOs and all of that, weird and wacky stuff that we'll talk about in a second. Then the other big side is like the higher level strategy, which is equally, if not even more important, and people seem to discredit that. So typically with a lot of media buyers, particularly those that, or e-commerce people, particularly those that have a background in, say, affiliate marketing, and then they've gone to start their own brand or they've started in drop shipping or something like that, everyone I see is essentially trying to solve their conversion problems or their campaign problems through the use of technology and essentially by clicking, right? By solving their problems, by trying to further optimize a campaign or by setting up manual bidding and hoping that the cost per acquisition goes down or something like that. The other side of it, which is so much more important, is the actual strategy behind the campaign and the customer facing, the customer experience and what they actually see, right? Because at the end of the day, you're marketing to humans, right? There's people sitting behind the computers. They're not just a number in your ads manager. There are actually people behind all these campaigns that you're running. So it's really, really important to have a really good grasp on your campaign and your creative, right? Something we tell our clients all the time when they start with us is we'll handle all the media buying and we'll crush it. But we need you now, since it's off your hands, to focus solely on the creative and the strategy and the branding, because that stuff is going to be the biggest leverage point as to whether or not this media buying over here is actually a success. So essentially what that looks like, and at the moment what we're doing is we're getting really granular and breaking down our funnel into a number of different steps, depending on where the customer is in the buying journey, right? Which sounds kind of basic, like face value, but we'll go a little bit deeper. So what we do is, the funnel is broken up into 3 steps. Usually what people do with their e-commerce brands is they've got a 2-step funnel. They've got their cold traffic and prospecting ads, and then they've got their retargeting ads. Super simple, and it's probably stuff that all you guys have heard of. Your prospecting ads being the ads that are hitting, new interests, lookalikes, people that have never seen or heard of your brand before. And then the retargeting ads are saying like, hey, we noticed you came to our website and left without buying. Come back and buy it. That's what everyone's running with at the moment. Now, what we're doing is we've added a 3rd step in there, being the middle of funnel. And that's all the people that have engaged with your brand, whether that be on Facebook or Instagram or watched a video or clicked to like a post or whatever it might be. We've taken all of those people that have engaged in one of those activities but haven't actually made it to the website and added a 3rd step in there right in the middle. And that's a huge audience where, a lot of people will see your ad and engage with your ad, but might not necessarily click to purchase. So by having this kind of workflow, obviously that capitalizes on a lot of the traffic that is warm traffic, but many people are still leaving it on the table. So that kind of workflow, with your top of funnel creatives and stuff like that, appealing to people that have never seen or heard of your brand before. We're still asking for the sale there. You definitely want to be going for the sale. Something that, as we're kind of moving into this trend now, a lot of people are teaching, set up video view ads so that you can get brand awareness and then retarget them to get the sale. That's not optimal at all, just because you want to be profitable, at least break even or profitable on the first touch point. Otherwise, one, you're going to have a lot of problems scaling if you're not cash flow positive. But secondly, if you have all these different moving parts, where you got a video view campaign up here and then you're retargeting the people to get them to your website and then you're retargeting them and asking them for the purchase. If you have that entire flow and it's profitable, even though it might not be profitable at the first touch point, that's okay. But there are so many moving parts that when you do go to scale it, you're really going to struggle scaling because, you got to increase the budget in proportion at each and every step. But secondly, you're also going to have a problem with, if something goes wrong in your funnel, you've got that many steps now where if one of these steps are broken, it's going to cost you a lot more in ad spend and a lot more in time and effort in actually troubleshooting and finding out what went wrong, which step you need to optimize, and then fixing the problem to get it all profitable again. So you definitely want to be profitable on the first touch point. That's that. So, and then, yeah, of course, as I mentioned, they're going into the middle of the funnel, where you're retargeting the people that haven't been to your website but have engaged. And then at the bottom of the funnel, you're still doing your usual retargeting. Now, in terms of creative and the angle, like I said, the first touch point, you want to be going for the sale. In the middle of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel, what's working really, really well right now is user-generated content, not necessarily video testimonials or video reviews, because that's been done and done. I mean, every time you click an ad and then leave the website, you see some random person with their phone like this talking about how awesome the product is, right? So that the market sophistication has moved past that point now, and that's kind of, it doesn't cut through the noise as much anymore. But what we're seeing work really well is user-generated content where the people are actually hands-on with the product, whatever it is that you're selling. It might be like an unboxing video. It might be them using it and talking through how they use it. It might be like, we've got one client at the moment that we've just kicked off, and they're doing like the scratch off like world maps. So like you travel to a country and then you scratch it off, that place in the place in the world that you go to, and it'll be colorful underneath, but it's all gray otherwise. So then, like, as you travel, it reveals all the places you've been to. So with these guys, where we've asked them to create a bunch of creatives for the middle of the funnel, where they actually get the customers to scratch off and talk about to the camera, talk about all the places they've been to and the crazy experiences that they had in those places when they were traveling, and that more sort of like edutainment kind of angle, where you're entertaining with the value that you're providing in your video ad. So you're entertaining, plus you're kind of educating on the product still, is really, really great, because I mean, obviously for those obvious reasons, but then also you get better engagement, which means your ad cost is going to go down, because Facebook wants to reward people that are putting out more engaging content, even with the advertising, the paid side of things. And also, I had another point, but I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, it's gone, man. I'm moving so quickly. Yeah, that's it. Hey, what's that?
I was saying that they're dropping so many value bombs, just like unloading everything.
Yeah, that's it, man. No, it's I think this is gonna be a pretty good podcast episode, so it should be sweet. But yeah, I mean, that's like the higher level strategy that I was talking about, and then on the other side of things, there's the actual media buying, the granular stuff that's happening in the ad account, the data analytics, and the operator side of things, the way you actually operate within Ads Manager. And what we're seeing at the moment, obviously there's this big transition now going into CBO, right? Where advertisers are being forced to run with campaign budget optimization. So instead of being able to set your budget on the ad set level, we set a budget on the campaign level, and then Facebook will distribute to the highest performing ad sets. So that's been a big cause of struggle for a lot of advertisers, I've found, because the ones that haven't adopted it, firstly, once September rolls around, and it has been pushed back to February, actually, I'll just note that. If you are still running ad set stuff, it'll be pushed back to February. If your account is entirely CBO, the changeover will become compulsory in September. So a lot of these business owners that I'm talking to now, they've been running ad set budget stuff. And because, the algorithm acts completely differently, whether you're running ad set budget or campaign budgets. So firstly, with your ad set budget, you've got a lot stronger kind of grip on which ad sets are actually delivering, which ones you're going to be spending on. And because of that, Facebook kind of builds its own data independently for each ad set. But when you run with CBO, you've got to, spend on all the ad sets within the campaign. It takes a little bit longer to build up all the data. So if you're treating it the way you treated your ad set budget stuff, where you can turn it off fairly quickly if you conclude that it's not profitable or whatever. If you do that with CBO, you're just going to end up starving the algorithm of data, and it's just not going to perform. So we've extensively split tested it, because we spend about, I didn't mention this before, we spend about $1 million a month on ads now across all our clients. So we've split tested this, and we found that so we set up 2 campaigns, one CBO and one ad set, and everything was the same, consistent throughout, like the ad set and campaign level, all the ads were the same and stuff like that. We found that out of the gate, ad set budget was better, but once you give campaign budget optimization a bit of a chance to actually gather the data and optimize, and we saw the tip over was about the 3-day mark, that's when your CPAs are going to drop quite significantly. And into the future, it's going to continue to drop, as where the ad set budget, it kind of performs out the gate, performs better than campaign budget optimization. But after 3 days, it's still going to stay consistent at that CPA, if not go up, as where CBO is going down, because it's got it's backed up by the complexity of the algorithm, where, Facebook is going out and finding your best audiences for you and stuff like that. So you've got to, while that's great, it means Facebook does need a little bit of data. So we just got to give it a bit more of a chance and a little bit more leeway. I mean, most recently, we started with another big client spending, between 10 and 20K a day, depending on the day, right? With these guys, their CEO came up to me and he was like when he first called me, he was like, dude, we're setting up new ads every single day because we're spent so much that there's ad fatigue and we have to set it up every day because it tanks after 24 hours. And all I'm doing is I'm spending all my time in ads manager and all this shit. He was completely frantic. He had no kind of systemized way of running things. And because of that, because he was going up and down with his campaigns, he had like 50 campaigns running in his accounts at a time. Wow. Because of that, what was actually happening, it wasn't a case of fatigue at all. What was actually happening was that 24-hour mark where the CBO is still just gathering data and it's still just trying to go out and find the prospective users that are likely to have a low CPA. So there is a little bit of fluctuation. He's turning it off as soon as that fluctuation happens because it becomes unprofitable. And by doing that, he's starving the algorithm of data. So what we did is we went in, we consolidated these like 30 campaigns down to just 2 campaigns for their 2 core offers. And then of course they've got their retargeting and stuff like that. And we literally just turned it on and let it run for 3 days. The CPA was double what it was supposed to be. He was full freaking out. He was like, what the hell are you guys doing? This is such a mistake bringing on. I'm like, dude, just trust us. Just like grit your teeth for like 3 days and you'll be thanking me later on. And then 3 days later, the CPAs went down to like $30 when our target CPA was 45. It went down to like $28, $29. Yeah. And he was mind blown. And then, he was like, God damn, I've been doing all this shit all this time, like setting up all these crazy campaigns and this is all it took. I'm like, yeah, man. And then we started to scale, of course. And so that's going pretty well. And scaling is like its whole own topic. But that's So that's what's kind of going on at the moment in the landscape that we're seeing at the moment in e-commerce. Yeah.
That is such a good summary of what's happening. Like, and it's really funny because so we both know someone called Mike Rhodes. So Mike, is amazing at Google AdWords, and he's very close to Google in terms of what they're doing. And it's kind of similar on that platform. It's like the algorithm is getting so smart, and the AI is getting so smart that essentially at one point it's like, how do you compete against the algorithm? And you don't. Which is why like the stuff you're talking about before, the strategy is so much it's so important. And I think when the change actually kicks over and everything's run the same way, and campaign budget optimization is across all accounts, it's kind of like then the real market is rise to the top, and the guys who have just been playing around with the algorithm and trying to do all the technical stuff, they're going to get left behind because how do you compete against Facebook's machine or like Google's machine? So I think that part that you covered with the strategic, dude, that's so important.
Yeah, and it's changing. Like the algorithm is changing all the time, man. Like every time there's this year has been a complete mess in terms of consistency and ad results and stuff. Yeah, which is, I mean, it's good for guys like us because then we got people that need lots of help and stuff like that. But I mean, typically, when one of these big, platform updates happens, and we've seen so many updates with the Facebook platform in the last kind of 3 to 4 months. Every time one of these updates happens, everyone's ad results go completely whack, and you've got to change up your media buying strategy. So if you've got really, really solid content and strategy to back yourself up, that's going to protect you against these algorithm changes big time. And it happens every year. Every year around like kind of between February and April, so like around March, there's a big update and it just wipes out a bunch of advertisers that, are working on that short term. How can I make profit right now from the first touch point? How can I just get someone to a website and get them to buy? What has like the most clickbaity, creative, and really like sneaky like hacks in the back of their ads manager and stuff like that, which we use precariously, is that a word? Cautiously, just to kind of
like common sense.
Yeah. So like, yeah, that's it. So like we know that it's a short-term strategy, right? So we use it, but all of our strategy built around that is such that, once the change does happen, we can smoothly transition into any new strategies that do come up, which they do. They're consistently like, everything is consistently changing, which is why it's so important to have like a solid agency partner that's managing your media buying, or that you're really on top of it yourself, because it's going to be completely different in 3 months from now than it is today. So.
Yes, and I think it's such an important point. Like, we both know some awesome growth hackers, and even like the growth hackers are like, growth hacking gives you short-term gains, but long-term you can't build a business off the back of hacks. Like you can kickstart something. You need like the whole flywheel and the whole system working, because otherwise, like one of these platforms turns around and overnight your ads die, and it's like, shit, where the hell do we go from here?
Yeah.
Cool. So, dude,
Yeah,
that
that's
was
it, man.
serious knowledge bombs, man. That was like, I think we started getting a little bit advanced as well. So, so like, if someone's looking at getting into ads for themselves, like for example, if they're like a retailer who's got even maybe like a brick and mortar store, and they're going, hey, we need to get online and get on top of this stuff because it's really just changing the face of how we do business. Like, what would be the first, 1 to 3 steps that you'd recommend them actually do?
Okay. If you're doing less than $1 million a month, which is probably most people that are listening to this, run your own ads. Run your own ads. It's super, super important that you're the one that begins running your advertising, no matter how difficult it is and how much easier it is to just hand it over to an agency and let them kind of take responsibility over it. It's super important because firstly, and like the most basic point is, you're not going to know whether or not your agency is actually doing a good job. But secondly, the media buying, like I said, that's, while it's critical to, and it's like the number one growth driver of the revenue once you've got a converting funnel and you've got all your content, your branding in place and stuff like that. If you haven't gone through the process of running your ads, you don't know what creative you need to create for your agency. You don't know how to set up your sales pages so that they're responsive, or like so that direct response traffic, so like this Facebook advertising traffic, is actually responds well to the advertising that you're setting up and stuff like that. So that media buying is a tiny little part of all these other elements that really need to be in place. And the only way you can learn all of this stuff is by diving in and doing it for a bit. That way, once you do hand over to an agency, you know exactly what you need to provide them with to ensure the best chance of success. And that's when they'll be able to scale you. So the clients that we get the best results with are the ones that either have a background in Facebook advertising, or they started their business and built it upon the foundations of direct response marketing, right? So that they understand how the sales pages need to be set up, how to run the back end of their business, how to have all their email flows in check, all of this sort of stuff. So yeah, the best clients that we bring on board and the ones that we have the most success with are the ones that have a solid grasp on that, because then once we take over their traffic and their advertising, we can aggressively scale them. And every time an issue comes up, if we say, hey, your landing page isn't converting as well as it could be, they don't know exactly how to go in and do it, right? If we say, we need new creatives because these old creatives are fatiguing, they'll provide us with like 5 different variations of really, really awesome creatives that are geared towards Facebook traffic, because consumers behave differently on every single platform, right? And they behave differently, whether they're, foot traffic coming into your brick and mortar business, or their radio traffic, TV, whatever it might be. They all behave differently. So with this direct response email, Facebook traffic, you have to provide them with really specific kind of parameters when it comes to creating your content and stuff like that. So if you run your own Facebook advertising for a start, you'll get a grasp on all the other stuff that needs to happen in order for that advertising to be successful. That way, when you give it to an agency, you can hand it to them so that they can scale you, and you can provide them with the tools that they need to be successful, right? So in terms of actually getting started so that you can run your own ads, there's so much information on YouTube, online courses and shit like that. You probably don't even need to invest in an online course. Most of that stuff is, most of that information is readily available. Typically when people sell online courses, they just kind of repackage the information and name it like their own weird strategy when it's the same thing, hundreds of other people are doing. The best places to go, obviously, are YouTube. And then in terms of like online learning resources, start like trawling through these Facebook groups. There's Facebook ad buyers, Facebook ad hacks, eComm empires. I've got a group called Epoch New Age Marketers, where a lot of people are learning a lot about this stuff. What else we got? There's heaps of Facebook. So just go into Facebook and just type in eCommerce, and then just search for groups, or eComm and search for groups. And then go and hang out in those groups, start engaging with all the people, ask your questions in those groups. That's by far the fastest way to learn. And then my biggest learning resource personally is, this is somewhere where I put out a lot of value like this, but also there are a lot of other really high level people that are managing, upwards of 20K a day in ad spend that we all interact and discuss our problems with together, is called AdLeaks Platinum. So that's a group by a guy called Tim Burden. He runs the Facebook.
Yeah, I've seen their content. It's really, really good. That's awesome, man. Yeah, look, I think it's a really good point that you bring up. Like, just to go back a little ways too, when you're talking about like the type of clients you work with, it's the same for us. Like, it's really hard for us to bring up a new business that hasn't validated their offer, they don't know like what audience they're marketing to, what offer they've got, because it's just like you got to spend so much more time figuring out the offer. Whereas if you know, if someone knows what they're doing, it's so much faster to scale it. So yeah, that's a really good point. So that was interesting. So if anyone's running less than, so you said, was it so $1 million a month in revenue? Is that what
less than $1 million a month? Still, like, run your own shit. Or even that might be a bit of a stretch. If you're doing less than 200K a month, you should absolutely be running your own shit. Absolutely. Then, you can continue. If you've gotten yourself up to 200K a month, you'll be able to get yourself up to about 500K a month with just by scaling with your Facebook ads and stuff like that. And then between 500 and $1 million, or even from kind of 200 to $1 million, that's when you kind of consider, bringing on an agency. But definitely do not bring on an agency unless you're doing a couple 100K a month. It's the biggest mistake you'll make.
Yeah, it's crazy because I've actually seen you do some pretty crazy numbers, especially with, I think it was one of the companies you're working with. They were like 100K a month. And then in 4 months, you're like, hey, they're doing $1 million a month. I'm like, what the hell happened? So,
So that was a car part company. They were doing, between 70 and 90K when we started. And that was about halfway through the year. And then December, we did $1 million or 1.1 mil or something like that. Just some ridiculous number. But that's the beauty of this direct response marketing stuff, right? So you can essentially, once you've got your offer and your funnel converting and stuff like that, it's just a matter of scale. The hardest part when it comes to this stuff is getting shit converting, like right in the beginning. That first, 500 to $1,000 per day spend.
Yeah, exactly. That first bit, like, it's the hardest bit to get through too, because if you're a business owner, you're seeing money fly out of your account, and and it might not be coming back, and you go, "What the hell am I spending the money on? Like, shit, this is bleeding me dry." But then it's kind of like, if you got a good agency on board, like obviously, with you guys, it is a process, so it is important to get through that part. So, dude, let's sum it all up, because you've just dropped some absolute knowledge bombs, right? I think it's like from just to sum up where you see e-commerce going, like where you see the advertising going, because there's so many changes. Like, what would you pay attention to, or what do you need to be aware of in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, right. So obviously there have been a lot of changes that Facebook has been making in terms of actually bringing the best user experience to Facebook's users, right? The people that are scrolling through Facebook. And that's going to be so impactful on brands for a number of reasons. So the first change we saw was, March last year, I think it was, Facebook introduced customer feedback scores where, after a customer purchases on your website, they'll actually, 2 weeks after, once they receive the product or whatever it might be, they'll receive like a little, it's almost like another ad in their newsfeed that says, did you purchase from this store? What was your experience with them? Was it a positive experience overall? And then they're gathering data on their advertisers and then actually penalizing them if they're doing shady shit. So that knocked out a bunch of dropshippers, right? And then more recently, so as you can see, it's like becoming, for Facebook, they're becoming more customer centric to their customers, right? We're not talking about the eComm customers. We're talking about the users of the Facebook platform, right? And then, more recently, we saw a transition. Now, Facebook just announced that, we're no longer going to be seeing 9:16 videos in the feed for advertising. You can't use 9:16. The max height is going to be 4:5. And you're only going to be allowed 3 lines of text in your ads. So more transition going into this user-centric kind of model that Facebook's trying to, so that they can deliver the best product to their users. Now, what that means for advertisers, it's kind of a little bit abstract. So you'll kind of understand why I'm saying this in just a sec. What that means is you need to be making your best efforts to provide the absolute best experience when it comes to both your purchasing experience, right? The post-purchase experience, whether or not they actually get a good product, whether it arrives quickly and stuff like that, but the advertising experience as well. So like I was talking about before, transitioning your creative and your content and stuff to become more edutainment, more, engaging and stuff like that. It's really, really important that all of your creative and your essentially your marketing angles start becoming more about the customer and how engaged they are with your content, how much they're actually enjoying the content and the value. Because we can see Facebook is already doing this, right? They're already saying, we're only going to have photos of this size because we don't want our entire feeds full of ads, and we're only going to let you use this much text. And on that same token, we have to move in that same direction for us to get the best results out of our advertising. So yeah, I mean, having a really, really strong grasp on your branding, and as we saw, the dropshippers all got knocked out. So having a really strong grasp on your branding, on your customer experience, and on their pre-purchase experience, I think is something that no one is talking about at the moment.
Yeah, that's crazy. There's so many changes coming up. So, dude, I think my mind's blown. And like every time we talk about e-commerce stuff and ads, dude, I just leave feeling like, holy crap, I'm glad I didn't do e-com. No, I'm joking. I'm just,
Yeah.
yeah. It's I think
that's it.
e-commerce is kind of like a field in and of itself. So it's funny when people, marketing, they're just like, oh, everything's the same thing. Facebook ads are the same. Like it's really not. Like lead generation on Facebook, especially for B2B stuff, is so different from lead generation or customer generation for e-commerce. So but man, every time I talk to you, I learn so much. So for everyone out there listening who are like, all right, that was too much for me, like I just want to talk to Dim, or I just want to get his help, like where can they find you?
Yeah, awesome. My website is dimniko.com. Now, if you want to learn how you guys can scale your ecom brands, just go to dimniko.com/scale. So that's dimniko.com/scale. And we've got like a huge, document, long form letter written that to help anyone out that's looking to scale their ecom brands and stuff like that. And then of course, Facebook is probably my biggest channel. So if you guys want to follow me on Facebook, it's Dimitri Nikolakakis. I'm sure it's in the show notes just because
I'll link all that.
It's such a long, wacky name. Yeah, but yeah, I put out content there like every single day about pretty much all the stuff that we've been talking about. So if you want to learn, that would definitely be the best place to go.
Awesome. Hey man, thanks so much again, Dimmy. I know the agency's growing, you're busy managing a team, all that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate you coming on and just sharing so much about ecom. I think, as I said, every time I speak to you about this stuff, it blows my mind. So I'm sure everyone listening would be like, "Holy crap, that was awesome!" Thanks again, dude. And look forward to our next episode where we talk about maybe some other stuff outside, like agency and all the other good stuff that we normally talk about off air.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. It was an absolute pleasure, and I'm super pumped. Should be good.
Awesome. Catch you soon.